So now that we understand what the counter system looks like, let's use it to actually solve a problem. So starting out, I'm just going to show you what I would do for this problem, and then I'll explain it step by step. Okay, so to solve this problem, this is what I would do. I have 4 negatives, and I add 3 more negatives, and that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negatives, which tells me that my answer is -7. Okay, simple enough. Let's get into the explanation. When we are solving problems like this using counters, we want to think about it as us following directions. So the first direction that we have is given to us by the first number. And that first number tells us that we start with 4 negatives. And I'm going to draw it out like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We start with 4 negatives. The plus sign in the middle tells us that we are adding more to the board. So we are adding to the board. And then the last number tells us what we're adding to the board. And in this case, we're going to add 3 more negatives. So I'm going to write that out. So all I have to do is follow my steps. I'm going to start out with 4 negatives. So I'm going to put that on the board. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it tells us that we are going to add to the board 3 more negatives. So I'm going to do that. 1, 2, 3. And whatever I end up with on the board is my answer. So like I said before, this leads to an answer of -7. So that was a pretty straightforward question. Now let's look at a question that involves recognizing 0 pairs. We are usually going to be on the lookout for 0 pairs when we are working on problems that involve 2 numbers that have different signs. So I'm going to go through and mark this problem up to see what I've got. I've got a negative number here. I can see that I'm adding, and what I am adding is a positive number. So let's go through the steps. We start with -3. We start with 3 negatives. 1, 2, 3. We add to the board. We add to the board 2 positives. Okay, so let's follow that. We are going to start with 3 negatives. I will put that on our board here. And then we add to the board 2 positives. Okay, so we cannot be finished with this problem until we only have 1 color of counter left. So right now we're not done. If you have more than 1 color of counter, what that should tell you is that you have some 0 pairs that you need to take care of. So I can see that I have this 0 pair right here, and I also have this 0 pair right here. So if I cross those 0 pairs out, what am I left with? I am left with 1 negative that's left behind. So my answer is going to be -1. All right? So when you have a problem with 2 integers that have different signs, you're probably going to end up needing to cancel out some 0 pairs. and whatever you have left over afterwards is going to be your final answer. Okay, let's do one more example before we end this video, just to make sure we really got it. All right, so I'm going to mark this up. I have a positive number here in the beginning, positive 5. I can see that I'm adding, and the number that I'm adding is negative 3. So that tells me I'm going to start with 5 positives. Start with 5 positives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And because this is an addition problem, we're adding to the board. To the board. 3 negatives. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's follow those steps. We are starting with 5 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to add to the board 3 negatives. 1, 2, 3. And I see that I have 2 colors on my board, so that signals to me that I need to keep an eye out for some 0 pairs. I will make a note that when I put these on the board, I tried to be really careful to line up my positives and my negatives, so it would be a lot easier to see what matches. Okay, so here are my 3 0 pairs. Because these are 0, I can just get rid of them. And what am I left over with? I have 2 positives left over, which tells me that my final answer is positive 2. And that's it.